Have you ever heard the wild claim that the Maasai people of East Africa shared their wives by placing a spear at the door? It's one of those stories that sounds shocking, exotic, and gets repeated all over the internet without any real context. But like so many cultural practices, the truth is far more complex, symbolic, and deeply misunderstood. In this video, we're going to dig into what the spear at the door practice actually meant, why it existed in traditional Maasai society, what it definitely was not, and why it's mostly not practiced today. It's time to separate the myth from the history. First, let's get a quick understanding of who the Maasai are. The Maasai are a Nilotic pastoralist community living mainly in Kenya and northern Tanzania. Traditionally, their entire society was built around a few key pillars: cattle herding, which is central to their wealth and identity, strong age-set systems that group men of similar ages into lifelong brotherhoods, polygyny, where men could have multiple wives, and deep, foundational values of hospitality, honor, and alliance. Understanding this social structure is absolutely essential, because without it, the practice we're discussing makes absolutely no sense. So, the spear at the door. What actually happened? In some Maasai communities, way back in the past, when a trusted male guest visited a homestead, a very specific and high-level form of hospitality could be offered. If the guest accepted this offer, he would place his spear outside the entrance of the hut, which is called a maniata. This spear acted as a clear public signal to everyone. It meant, "This space is occupied, do not enter." This was not secretive. It was not considered adultery within the Maasai moral system of that time, and it was definitely not casual. The spear symbolized permission, respect, and social approval from the host. It was a formal, recognized arrangement between men who were bound by trust and social ties. It was an institution, not a random act. Now, why did this practice even exist? To our modern eyes, this sounds incredibly strange, but in traditional Maasai society, it followed a very clear cultural logic. There were a few key reasons. First and foremost, it was about hospitality and alliance. For the Maasai, hospitality wasn't just about giving someone food or shelter. It was about building profound trust between men, especially between age mates, close friends, or important political and social allies. Sharing this ultimate form of hospitality was a way to forge unbreakable bonds and reduce potential conflict in a world where alliances were crucial for survival. Second, it relates to polygyny and the concept of lineage. Many Maasai men had multiple wives. In this system, what mattered most was social fatherhood, not necessarily biological paternity. Any child born within a marriage belonged fully and completely to the husband's lineage. That child was accepted without any stigma or questions asked. This means that sexual exclusivity was understood very differently than it is in most modern Western societies. The focus was on the continuation and strength of the family line, under the authority of the husband. And third, what about the woman's role? It's critical to understand this was not random access to women. The woman involved was a recognized wife, acting within established social rules. And while the concept of consent was shaped by the traditions and patriarchal structures of that era, the act itself was not viewed as immoral or degrading within that specific cultural framework. It was a regulated social custom. Now, that doesn't mean it was a perfectly equal or ideal system by today's standards, but it was regulated and understood by everyone involved. So let's be very clear about what this practice was not. This is important because this is where the sensationalism comes from. It was not prostitution. It was not open or constant wife sharing. It was not something done with strangers, and certainly not with enemies. It was a practice reserved for a very small circle of trusted allies. It was also not a daily or universal Maasai behavior. It was an exceptional form of hospitality, not a routine event. And most importantly, it is not how Maasai people live today. In fact, many Maasai people today strongly and rightfully reject this idea when it is presented as some defining feature of their entire culture. It's an outdated and often offensive stereotype. So, how did this story get so twisted? It largely started with early colonial writers and anthropologists. They often exoticized African societies, looking for practices that would shock their Western audiences. They focused on sexuality, took it out of context, and ignored the deep cultural meanings and social rules that governed it. Over time, a complex tradition of alliance building was flattened and reduced to a sensational, clickbait-style headline: Maasai men shared their wives. That simplification stripped the practice of its context, its limits, and its powerful symbolism. Let's talk about the modern reality. Today, this practice is either extremely rare or completely extinct. The influence of Christianity and Islam, the spread of formal education, and the adoption of modern legal systems have all profoundly reshaped Maasai life. Marriage today, while polygyny still exists in some areas, generally emphasizes privacy, individual consent, and fidelity in a way that aligns more with global norms. So, in conclusion, the spear at the door wasn't about promiscuity. It was about hospitality, alliance, and social order, all within a specific time, a specific place, and a specific worldview. Understanding other cultures means we have to resist the urge to judge them based on sensational headlines alone. We need to look deeper. If you found this helpful in clearing up a common misconception, please like, subscribe, and share. Let's keep learning about the world with curiosity instead of relying on stereotypes. Thanks for watching.